Are you somebody who struggles with your money? Maybe you've experienced some financial challenges, maybe such as debt, divorce, illness. Maybe you've been scammed. Financial challenges is one of the top reasons for mental ill health. It's something that affects a huge proportion of people. So, in today's presentation, I'm going to talk to 5 simple steps of how to master these financial challenges. And just to give you a bit of context who I am and why I'm speaking on this topic. I'm originally from Ireland. I live in the Isle of Man since 2015. I'm a sea swimmer, hockey player, qualified financial advisor. I'm a professional property investor, 9 buy-to-lets, 1 Airbnb. I've got 3 kids, secondary ages. I'm formerly a home educator. I divorced last year. I'm passionate about financial wellness since 2015. And I've experienced many financial challenges myself, so I can speak to this with some authority in terms of debt, divorce, illness, and scams. So the first of the 5 steps we're going to cover today is that you acknowledge that there is a problem. And this can be the step that most people just get stuck at because they want to believe that there isn't a problem. They want to feel that their heads are really in the sand, as the picture displays, and they try to carry on as if nothing is amiss. And 9 times out of 10, this will come back to bite them. So really stepping up and admitting to yourself that there is a problem of whatever type it is really the first step. And when we do that, it can result in a flood of emotions. So we can experience shame, guilt, anger, worry, stress, embarrassment, feel really stupid as to how we've got ourselves in those situations. So it can be quite difficult to deal with. So when I first experienced this was back when I started my journey with this in 2015. I was living in Ireland at the time. I had 3 small kids. I'd just given up my job to be full-time mom and home educator. And we had one income coming in, 100% mortgages, and ends were barely meeting. So we lived in a beautiful house, as you can see here, and from the outside in, it looked like everything was going well. But the reality was that we were very close to that cliff edge. And it wasn't until my kid's birthday party, we had a birthday party, and on the morning of that day, 2 letters arrived on the doorstep to say that the bank had increased the mortgage on this house and on our house in Dublin by 0.5%. There was no ECB rate, so it was totally unprecedented and it was unexpected rather. And it took us right to that knife's edge. And my concern was because it was unprompted by an ECB change, they could repeat that again and again, and then what? We would go over the edge. So it was a really stark wake up call to sort my money stuff out and to admit that, yeah, there was a problem and it needed addressing. So instead of me being present for my kid's birthday party, I spent the day in my head worrying about this. So I made the decision that day to make a change, to acknowledge there was a problem, to do something about it. So that's where my journey began with financial literacy, financial wellness, and starting to learn more about it. Because despite having a background in banking, despite being, educated to university level, I was never ever taught some of the principles. So I started by educating myself around this. I got a book, worked with a mentor, and started to really get my head around how things could be different. And that really is, I guess, the first step is just acknowledging it. And once you acknowledge it, then you start to see how you can move forward. So the second step then is around identifying what you need to be okay. And this really can take many forms depending on where you are and how you best function. It could look like professional advice, maybe with an independent financial advisor, somebody in the well-being space. If you're having sleep issues, it's impacting your health, or it could be sharing it with somebody you trust in your family and friend circles. It could be taking some space. So you're so busy in your day-to-day firefighting and keeping all the balls in the air that you actually don't have time to even give it some thought as to how you can move forward. So sometimes space can be the answer to get you to that okay place. It can look like getting yourself some protection. So having that discussion with a qualified advisor who can provide you with some of the protection, maybe in terms of insurance policies, etc., that might help you with the situation that you're in. So earlier this year, I experienced the largest financial loss I've ever had in my life, and it was close to 100,000, and it's still growing and it's still ongoing. That for me was one of the biggest tests on myself of not being okay. And I got to a point in that situation where I wasn't okay and I knew I wasn't okay. And it involved a company going into liquidation who we were working with for our property investments, and they had huge rent arrears for us. They had run up council tax bills on us. We paid them for refurbishments they hadn't done, and I'd been working with them for a number of years, so I had trust in them. I had done my due diligence, and yet when this happened, they went into liquidation, and we lost all that money. The emotional impact on them, that to me was huge. I, at various points, was struggling to breathe. I felt this huge weight on my chest. I was struggling to sleep. I wasn't eating well. And I could feel the impact on me on a day to day basis. And at a couple of points, I really wondered how I was ever going to recover from this situation. And that was really, I guess, a turning point in terms of learning myself what it was that I needed to be okay. And it was at a point where I knew as a sea swimmer, I needed to get in the water and to wash the grime of this situation off me and all the other people it was affecting. But I didn't trust myself to go in the water by myself. So I rang a friend and asked her to come to the beach with me, to sit on the beach, and if she saw me disappear under the water, to drag my ass out of there. Because I found at various points going through that experience the heaviness of the situation and how acutely it was affecting my safety, my security. I didn't know how it was going to turn out. I really questioned whether I was better off being here or not. And that wasn't a good place to be in with three kids. But I recognized that, and I knew I needed to reach out to somebody to have my back. So that is my own personal experience of not being okay and how I got to that. And it really, I guess, the picture of the snow globe is there because sometimes when we're in those situations and, everything is in turmoil and we can't see the wood from the trees, that's not the time to make a decision. So we need to get ourselves to okay so that we can actually figure out what do we need next. So putting the snow globe down, letting the dust settle, getting ourselves to okay, and then looking to see what's next. Okay, but that getting to okay is often rushed and we underestimate it because we want to get and be taking the action. But if you're in a situation that's affecting you acutely, you need to first get yourself in a good space before you can move forward. The third step in this is around taking full responsibility. So, I often work with people with this, and I will see them blame, the banks or their employer or their partner or other people who in their lives who have caused them to be in the situation that they're in. And my thoughts on this is a huge waste of energy. And it's not to say that other individuals don't play a part in the situations that we find ourselves in, but it's to say that there's not much, we're giving away control when we do that. So what I'd like you to do really is when you get yourself in the space of taking full responsibility, it feels very much like you're in control and you're deciding what's happening next. You're not putting it outside of yourself and pointing the fingers at other people. And it's the exact opposite of the blame game. So it's about you taking 100% responsibility for how you're going to move forward with this and on deciding how you're going to navigate through this. So during COVID, I realized myself that I was in a relationship that I wasn't happy in, and but I was financially dependent. I had given up my job to stay home with my kids and home educate them full time, and so I had no income. So we had one household income. That income during COVID totally disappeared, and we just had Mira. And I started to work during COVID on a plan to get myself to a financially independent place so that I could decide whether it was the financial dependence that was causing the issue or whether it was something else. And having done the property investment that I mentioned earlier, I got myself to a place where I had some income coming in and I could see how I could get myself to independent over time. But in the throes of that, I realized it wasn't the financial dependence that was causing me the problem. There was a problem in the relationship. I wasn't happy. And so I applied for divorce. It was very easy in that situation to blame everybody around me, to blame my ex-husband, to blame my kids, to blame other people in in my life. But the reality was that that wasn't going to help me move forward. So I needed to take 100% responsibility to accept the fact that I needed to end the relationship and I needed to start to figure out where I needed to move forward from. Now, having spent half my life with my ex, there were a lot of roots. There was huge pain in doing that. I was lucky enough to be able to afford to get somebody to support me emotionally as I went through that. And that helped me navigate it. But taking the responsibility to me and ensuring that I was in the driving seat as to where this went, despite the fact that it was hugely difficult process to go through with three kids and all that entails. It was very important that I accept the responsibility, and that's I would encourage anybody in that space at the moment of pointing the finger elsewhere to really have a look as to, when you take that power back in and you look in your own circle of control, your locus of control, it makes the world of difference as to how you move forward. So the fourth step then is around making friends with your money. And this might sound a little bit twee and thinking, really, is this something to do with financial challenges? And reality is it does. It has a lot to do with it. A mentor of mine a number of years ago shared this analogy with me, and it makes sense to me hugely. And anytime I share it, it tends to resonate with the individuals I share it with. And it's the idea that if you think of money as not an inanimate object, but as a friend, and if you don't return your friends' calls, you pay no attention to how they're feeling, if they're struggling, then you find that that kind of dynamic it's disempowering. It's not a pleasant, happy relationship to be in. And the parallels are similar with money. So if you're not paying any attention to what's coming in, what's going out, where you're spending your money, how much time you actually dedicate on a monthly basis to watching, reviewing what's going on and making plans for the future, then the money's probably not going to be in a healthy place in your life because you're not giving it any attention. And it's trying to get the balance between too much and too little. And there is a happy medium somewhere in the middle, and it can vary from person to person. And it's about trying to find what that is for you. And a big piece in this jigsaw is gratitude. So I started this practice with my money back in 2015 again when I started on this path, and it was something that obviously it was free to access. It was recommended that I write it with three small kids, broken sleep. It was never something that I was going to do. So I adapted it to suit myself. And I would, before I went to sleep, I would run through it in my head in terms of what I was grateful for. And there were many things, even though we were at the cliff edge and ends were barely meeting. I had three happy, healthy children. I lived in a beautiful house. I had food in my cupboards to feed us all, and I was able to pay my mortgage and bills. So they were some pretty big things that gave me a really great sense of safety and security. There were many things that I wanted to improve and build on, but that's not to say that, where I was right at that time was a good place to be. So I wanted to make sure that each time I did that at night, went through it in my head, I started to feel, and the more I felt grateful for what I had in my life at that time, the more I started to attract into my life, and the more I started to focus on what I had and not looking at it from all the things that were wrong. And that really was a game changer. Um, an experience I had during COVID also was that house I showed you earlier in the presentation was we were renting it when we relocated, and There was no issue until we went to put it on the market, because during COVID things were quite tight and we needed to sell it. So we put it on the market, and no sooner had we done that, we got a phone call from the estate agent to say that the house had been raided by the Criminal Assets Bureau in Ireland. The doors kicked in, and €500,000 worth of heroin, cocaine, and counterfeit goods found. So it was all over the papers and the news. Because of that, nobody would go to visit it, not surprisingly, because the individuals who were arrested during COVID were released on bail and were back in the house. So nobody wanted to view the house, even though there were many inquiries. Nobody would go there because they were actually in the house. So this is obviously a big problem. We really need to sell it. What do you do? If we don't sell it, we're gonna, have a serious financial impact on that. So it's a really stressful situation. And I remember receiving the call and having that wait again, like somebody had punched me, and having to sit down because I thought, maybe, is this a joke? No, it's not a joke. Okay, what do we do? So again, that snow globe, I really felt shaken up by it. I walked away, let the dust settle on it. And on further investigation, we realized that the individuals in the house had links to the Russian mafia, because we were potentially going the strong arm route, changing the locks, evicting them. But on discovering this, we decided against it, and then let it settle again. Thought, okay, what will I do? And I was in the shower one day, and I remember having the idea, hang on a second, the police have seized his phone and his laptop. He has no way of contacting me. He doesn't have my address. He only ever has had my email address. So I wrote him a handwritten letter. I explained to him the difficult situation we were in, and I asked if we could have a call, and I sent him my contact details so he could make contact. And this was exactly what had happened. He had no way to contact me. He didn't. All the contact details were on the devices that were seized. So it was that time in the shower, away from it, just doing normal daily thing, and then I have the space and the idea drops in. And that was the thing that unlocked the situation that we had there. So we have quite a serious situation. It's in a bit of a deadlock. We don't know how it's going to go. And from that idea of a handwritten letter that came to me, we then were able to negotiate with him and agree as to when he would move out. And it all went as agreed. So that really illustrates, I guess, that fourth step around making friends with it, and just starting to have a better relationship with it. So the last step then is having clarity on what enough looks like. And we often hear talks about, absolute abundance, and, being dripping with everything that, we desire, the yachts and the private planes and whatever. But reality is, for the vast majority of us, we want some basic things. We want to know that we're feeling safe and secure. We've got some emergency funds in place. We've got our retirement provided for. We've got our kids provided for. Maybe our mortgage is paid off. We've got money to go on a holiday here and there when we so choose. We can afford to pay our bills every month. Maybe we have money for some nice things every month, to treat ourselves and our loved ones. And for most people, that's what it looks like. So, but for a lot of people, they don't know, they've never given thought to actually what that looks like. And so they can't put a number on what that is. And for many people, it's actually not that much more than what they currently have, but they put it out there as something that's never going to be achieved. So it's about trying to figure out, what does that look like? And that can ramp up. So when you're in a challenging position, it can look like some very basic pieces in place. Like earlier this year, having had my comfort zones totally wiped out, it was about putting that emergency fund back in place and making sure all the bills were covered and I had consistent income coming in. And then when that's achieved, then you move to the next place. So the enough can change slightly, but until you take the time to actually figure out what that looks like, you don't really know. And I guess how I experienced this in my life in the last few years, going through the divorce, I knew at one stage, I knew there was something wrong with me physically, but I couldn't there was nothing, no symptoms presenting. I just felt that something was off. wasn't surprising with the stress of the divorce and of COVID, losing income. And so I got a scan and discovered early stages breast cancer. My mum had it, so that was my first thought as to what might be going on. So because I picked it up early, I was able to get treatment and avoid surgery, etc. So that was a real blessing in disguise. Because I put provisions in place, I was able to take the time out to recuperate, to reduce my work schedule significantly, so I had the space to heal and get better. And that really came about, having that vision of what enough looks like, because I had the image and the vision of, if anything like that happened to me, any emergency of any type, that I would be able to press pause and do what I needed to do. So whether that was looking after parents or whatever, that was an example of knowing what that looks like, having the money in place to meet that, and then being able to press pause. So if you have any questions on this or any thoughts, feel free to contact me. You will find the link below to book a financial wellness clarity call. You'll see on my YouTube channel, Financial Wellness Academy, that there are many other videos on similar topics. And if you want to reach out to me, drop an email at financialwellnessacademy.co.uk. Thank you for watching, and I hope this was helpful for you today.